It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays. And this Wellness Wednesday, I'm actually going to talk about something because I ran out of time and it's not therapy this week. And there was more I wanted to talk about, but limited time on It's Not Therapy. I want to talk about internal versus external validation because that's what I'm. I did a bit of a catchy title thing, which I'm uncomfortable with, but realize it's better for downloads. So I talked about the idea of being addicted to achievement, not in the literal sense, in the this will help you remember the concept sense, because I'm big on don't call compulsions addictions, but compulsive achievement compulsion isn't going to get the same number of clicks. So that's me disclosing for honesty's sake what's going on there. But I really only scratched the surface about how to build internal validation and the external validation, internal validation loop that happens. A lot of people really settle when it comes to the people in their social circles. And this has not great effects on their self-esteem. And you go, this is totally obvious, but it isn't really, because people are like, I don't want to reject people the way I was rejected. And that is very human. It's also a great way to get taken advantage of. And I don't say that to blame people for being taken advantage of. I'm saying this so that if you have been taken advantage of because of this, that's what happens. It's not your fault. Because we're taught that by society, right? This is what Ayn Rand was railing against when she talked about rational selfishness. You know, the idea of altruism being that you have to suffer to prove your morality. That's bullshit. You know, all rational selfishness is put on your own mask before assisting another passenger in life outside of airplanes. And this has been so pilloried and so mischaracterized, and even by Ayn Rand's own acolytes, has been taken as a permission structure to do shitty things to people. And if you see the things Ayn Rand did as a person, it's very clear that she wouldn't be down with some of the crap people are doing today. And this is where we got, I had a conversation with somebody about skeptic communities, and how sort of skeptic YouTube acts all intellectual, but they just, on certain things, they just completely reverse burden of proof. And it's because it's emotional. And that's not a criticism, that's human. And it was in the context of why I'm skeptical about the skeptic movement. Because I think that you may notice I don't consider myself well, I suppose I consider myself more a cynic than a skeptic, because I like to go at things I think are dumb. But I am so skeptical of movements in general. You may have heard me say, I am not a joiner. I invest in individuals based on behavior, not movements based on ideology. And, you know, there are things I define myself as, and people assume certain things about me, and that's at their own peril, because saying I am, say, a feminist does not mean I'm going to agree with, say, the Marxist wing of feminism to not get kicked out of the group. kick me the fuck out. I don't care. I mean, I never asked to be in. I don't identify as things to be popular. I'd be much wealthier if I was good at popularity. When I tried to focus on popularity, when I was working in TV, I was at my most miserable I've ever been in my life. I talk about this a lot, but I went from a, ugly brainiac fat nerd to bimbo overnight. Nothing about me had changed, I can still wear the same clothes I fit into in high school. I still have a few clothing items from high school. They've really hung in. Not the goth stuff because those all faded from washings, but other things, more normie clothes. I haven't changed much, but I had that ability to see how the perceptions of me changed in other people based on role. And that just sort of broke me in terms of assumptions about people based on labels forever. Because it wasn't true about me, so I absolutely cannot assume it's true of anyone else. But that's an example of a real strong sense of individual identity. And again, I've stepped away from calling identity groups or identity categories that. I call them social categories because they're really not about identity, at least not for me. To me, when I call myself a feminist, it's area of interest. I am interested in the study of gender. I am interested in true equality for the sexes. I do see evidence both historically and in modernity that femininity is seen as less than masculinity. So, the status goes from most masculine to most feminine. Feminine women are seen as weak and oppressed. And that's why I started doing Two Women Talking, because I can't represent feminine ladies. I'm just not. I can perform it for pinup modeling, but the reason I was a good pinup model is that was very conscious. It's not innate. And so that's why I was so glad to find Song, because she's smart, but also she is girly girl. And I present her to the world through my channel because I want to show that that's valid. That something I am not is equal. Because I truly believe that we reward more masculine women. And that feels unfair to me. The idea that I am somehow benefiting based on something I can't control there was active attempts to program the dude out of me. It didn't work. That puts me in a better position. That's fucked, right? And that's an example of how internal validation works. I am secure enough in myself and that I am doing what's right and best and ethical and moral for me. And if anybody wonders, who hasn't seen this channel in a while, the difference between morality and ethics for me. Morality is sort of what you believe in right and wrong. Ethics is the framework you create to achieve that morality. And it bugs me that I do everything wrong according to girl world. And that benefits me in other areas, because that means that people who do everything right according to girl world are being trained for failure economically. And I am not okay with this. That's what feminism as an area of interest means to me. It means validating people who are different from me, because I am secure enough in myself to go, different things can be equally good. That is what equality means to me. Different should not be less than or greater than. And it led me into men's work because, well, quite frankly, I got sick of beating my head against the wall in feminist gaming circles. There's a lot more I could say on that, obviously, but I thought it had gotten to the point that I had said plenty from my perspective. You know, I did Lady Bits and then I did Boss Fight. Now I want to do something creative again with the game. It's a lot of work. It's a big lift. I think if Mary Just and I knew just how much work it was going to be, we probably never would have done it. But sometimes it's good to let one's ambition overwhelm one's good sense. That's how shit gets done. You know, how much more can I say from my perspective or an intellectual perspective? The next logical step was two women talking for me, because I am not that invested in my opinions. And that's something people get wrong about me. Late last week, I got accused once again of not being able to admit I was wrong, or you could never be wrong, can you? And it's like, I am wrong about 3 times before I get out of bed in the morning. Ask my cats. But, you know, that's one of those things that, do I care that this guy thought that? Well, no, because I don't believe he actually thought that. I believe he was lashing out because he couldn't admit he'd made a mistake. But I see that and I realize, you know, the threshold that guy threw that at me. And that wasn't the only thing he threw at me. It was like a barrage of just gaslighting 101. Like, it was so textbook. It was kind of pathetic. People don't go there that quickly the first time. And I know that works on more feminine women, because that's the training. You're supposed to be nice. You're supposed to people please. You're supposed to put other people's needs before your own. Again, we go back to rational selfishness. Put on your own mask before assisting another person. And it's really interesting that if you say, put on your own mask before assisting another person, if you call it self-care, people go, oh, yes, self-care is very important. If you call it rational selfishness, people go, no, that selfishness bad. But is it? Right? Because to me, validating people who are different from me ultimately benefits me. And this is where we get into the concept of interest conversion, which, critical race theory. Here's what interest convergence is. Interest convergence is the understanding that the dominant group is not going to agree to a change unless they see there is something in it for them. Makes sense, right? It's kind of stupid to just willingly relinquish power. That's a critical race theory principle. And it's completely common sense. But you label it critical race theory, and people will just go, nope, even though the principle is absolutely valid on a common sense basis. And this is why I don't like labels. But I understand that people are going to label me. So I'd rather play with a few heuristics and not get too attached to them because, hey, at least there's going to be spin no matter what. I want to be able to influence it as much as possible. And I admit it's kind of fun to be the thorn in the side of Marxist feminism that they can't remove without bleeding to death. Because they can't go after me on points. Because, you know, a Gogo Bordello lyric went through my head, I know it all from Diogenes to Foucault. That's in Start Wearing Purple. Listen to Gogo Bordello, it's a great band. But they can't beat me on the text because I've read it and I can recall it. Nerd. So they have to character assassinate me. And they tried that, and I Obi-Wan'd that shit. They struck me down. I became more powerful than they could ever imagine because I actually have the respect of the people they allegedly want to influence. Because the stupid thing about a lot of the stuff the left does is they are so afraid of being canceled. And the right does this too, but they're just better at threading the needle because it's a simpler needle. The left is so interested in not being kicked out of the left. They spend all their time on defense and they don't create a persuasive argument to the persuadable center. And this is just stupid to me. This is not rational selfishness. Because why would someone who truly believes in progressive values and progress, in the fact that there's still more work to be done and we have a moral imperative to do it, why would anyone be interested in persuading someone who is already down with trans rights or LGBTQ plus rights overall, or, Black civil rights or Hispanic inclusion, or, breaking down the stereotypes against Asian and South Asian people, or the shitty treatment of the indigenous? Why? I don't have to convince someone who's already on board. So it doesn't matter if they hate my guts. I'm interested in talking to the people who aren't there yet, but are here in good faith. Obviously not because I'm looking for power, because I legitimately believe in what I'm saying. And to me, I learned a lot from this. He was a Southern Baptist pastor who was, when I first met him, was boss of a friend of mine. And he's originally a Jamaican dude. I believe Jamaican, somewhere in the Caribbean. But he used to hop from like island to island and just show up and start talking. There was no congregation per se. I remember he told me this story about they'd be landing the plane and they'd be clearing the goats off the runway. I don't know if he knew I loved goats, but it was a well-targeted story. But he was very, very genial, very conversational. His tagline was, "I told you that story, so I can tell you this one." Very chill. But that I learned a lot about, you're the most compelling when you're not trying to change someone's mind. You're just sharing. And being honest and just being authentic and saying, this is who I am. This is what I believe. If you like it, awesome. If you don't like it, I don't terribly care. That is the most compelling. You notice I didn't say persuasive, compelling argument. Because the truth about persuasion is the minute you try to artificially speed it up or force it, then you're being coercive. You've lost. True persuasion is it's like dating in a lot of ways. You can overinvest, you know. If you're sort of, you know, the best way to get someone interested in you is to seem curious but not super invested in them, because most women have low self-esteem, and anybody who's really, really, really into them, they're like, what's wrong with him? I'm shit. You don't necessarily want that person, but that's the reality of most women. Again, remember, I'm bad at girl. I resisted that programming. And so I show up here and I just talk. And I did an interview with the Toronto Star. I can't believe I said that. It wasn't for me. It was for somebody else. It was me commenting on another person. If you're wondering why I distrust the Toronto Star, they called me out of the blue demanding to see financial records on a crowdfund I'd done based on an anonymous tip that came from Stalker Chan. And I said, oh, no. You got to show me some proof. I don't have to show you shit. What's your evidence? And they had nothing. It was a tip. Wait, so you're trying to intimidate me into voluntarily disclosing financial records, and you don't even know the identity of your source? And then the guy clearly hadn't done his research on me, because he tried to journalist-splain me. You can imagine how well that went. But yeah, his boss at the Toronto Star insisted there was nothing unethical about strong-arming me over an anonymous tip with nothing to back it up. I'm not a big fan of the Toronto Star. But this particular writer knows nothing about that. It's a completely different beat. So, okay. But, you know, I was saying, ethical entertainers don't give a shit whether they offend someone. They absolutely do not want to hurt anybody. And he didn't seem terribly interested in that comment, but I like it because it's true, right? Somebody's offended, too damn bad. You know, I don't care. Naked ladies offend you, I don't care. Gay people offend you, I don't care. Trans people offend, I don't fucking care. There's no right to go through life never being offended. But nobody who wants to make people laugh in good faith seeks out hurting people, because that's not funny, right? Being mean's not funny. A lot of comedians got into comedy as a self-defense mechanism to stop people from picking on them. We don't want to be bullies. There are occasionally people who, they are bullies. I don't find them funny. But again, the through line of all of this is when you are able to internally validate, when you're able to go, I am a person, and therefore I have intrinsic value. Now, you know, I think animals have intrinsic value too. I think anything living has intrinsic value. But I believe all humans have intrinsic value. It doesn't mean I have to agree with their actions. It informs my behavior when people do bad things. Because when it comes to me responding, that's no longer about the other person. They're not forcing me to respond in any way, even if they cause me to feel a certain way. I have a choice in how I respond. And that's essential to, knocking the disorder off of post-traumatic stress disorder. That's the difference, right? You are never going to be able to forget what happened to you. But the disorder part about it, is all about feeling like you have control again over something. And ironically, that means just giving up giving a shit about things you can't control. And one of those things you can't control is the opinions of other people. Now, do I care more about the opinions of people I think are good people than the opinions of people I think are bad people? Yeah. Are there some people I know to be good people who threw me under the bus because of politics? Yeah. Am I pissed at those people? Yeah. Do I suddenly think those people are bad people? No. Because again, internal validation. I'm secure in who I am. So I don't have to fight every battle. Like, okay, they're wrong. I still think they're a good person. It sucks that they forgot what they knew about me personally because of the perception on a political point that people had about me. That's wrong. That's just wrong, I can't do anything about that. And I am not going to make the same mistake they did of pulling a dick move out of self-preservation because, wrong thing. Won't do it. Is there a cost to that? Yes. Am I willing to pay it? Yes. Why? Because people who do that, even though I believe them at the core good people, are not reliable people. So I prefer reliable people. I need people I can scrap with, I can disagree with, that I don't have to tiptoe around, because that's not me. I don't want an environment where everybody is afraid to speak, afraid to be themselves, afraid to express an opinion, because say one thing and you're out. I don't want that. And I'm at the point where, because I got really tough and learned how to control what I can control, I can do something about that. I can create, as Moi Moi from It's Not the Team, It's Not Therapy says, a bubble. It's like the rest of the world can cancel me, but this group of people, they're good with me. And I'd rather focus on the people that I can do something about than the people who are going to misjudge me, because I can't do anything about that. And I'm not willing to sell my soul to appease them. And you can only do that if you internally validate. If you're focused on achievement and awards and all that stuff, you don't get there. And someone can say, yeah, but you've won some awards, Leanna. You don't know what it's like to never do it. And let me tell you about the Canadian Comedy Award, because this is a good story. Because we beat out, it was on a show that we legitimately didn't get paid for. I'll leave that there. Called This Movie Sucks. And it was done for nothing. We were literally making things out of cardboard boxes. But it was movies that would fallen into public domain that were delightful garbage. And we'd do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 format. But instead of talking over it, we'd just come back from breaks and do silliness. And it won a Fan Choice Award at the Canadian Comedy Awards, beating out much bigger budget shows. So people were not really thrilled. It didn't feel like anybody in the room was happy that we won. When they announced the award, it was like, that's what it was like. It was a fan award. Like, you'd think somebody would be going, oh, people like this show. It was made for peanuts. Maybe we should talk to these people to see how we can duplicate that effect, because they clearly know how to make good shows for very little money. Not in Canada. No. You're the enemy. You've committed a thought crime. And so we were doing our thing, and when it was my turn to talk, with the exception, and this was way before Me Too. This was way before any of this hashtag feminism in Hollywood. I said, I really would like to see more women in comedy writers' rooms, because you know what? It's lonely there. Again, only a smattering of applause. You could feel the hate. And that's why I don't buy when people are like, TV's woke, it's all woke. No, it isn't, because if they were really, really, truly woke, that wouldn't have happened. And now I look back on it, and at first I was like, oh shit, that did not go well. And now I'm like, baller move, cred, man. Like, you can't buy that experience. You can't pay for a university to educate you in that shit. And if you wonder why some women in comedy, like Jen Gao, showrunner of She-Hulk, seem a little bitter, shit like that, because you can't tell when people are like, oh yeah, girl power, whether they're lying to you or not, whether they're the ones that sit on their hands with something like that. And I get that bitterness. I just choose to not partake in it. I choose to look at it like that's a hilarious story. Because again, I stopped seeking external approval. I don't know. First time I remember going, I don't care what people think, I'm going to do this thing, I was like, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 8 years old, and I choreographed my own tap dance routine to Teddy Bear's Picnic, the Anne Murray song. I think people didn't get it. It was a little interpretive. It was like the origin of Princess Sparkle Pony, furry dancing. But I remember I did it because my mom liked the song. That's why I picked that one. But people didn't get it, and I didn't really care. And then as I went through adolescence, I tried to care because, around the 7th grade, that girl world programming kicks in, and you're not allowed to hang out with boys anymore. That's weird. So you're shoved back into girls. But, going full circle, I felt rejected back then. I had the stuff to not care. I can't imagine what it's like to care. And instead of taking that rejection and going, I'm only going to advocate for people like me, I took a different lesson. It was people rejected me for being weird, for not being like them. So I am going to support and promote people I think are smart and who have good hearts, who don't see things the same way I do and aren't interested in the same things I am. Obviously, there's got to be crossover for shared metaphors, but, it's about behavior. It's about character. It's not about interest or opinion. And I know that comes from being able to internally validate. Because that's me being able to go, you know what? There's more than one right answer at any given time. And you can't do that if you don't believe your answer's right. And I'll leave it there. Internal validation. That's the stuff I wasn't able to say on It's Not Therapy. So I didn't do the coffee thing off the top. Shoot. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching Wellness Wednesdays.